What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Universal Mastery. Welcome back to my channel where I break down the occult sciences to a very practical level so that you can use them and apply them in your day-to-day life and get real, actual results with the things that I'm talking about simply by applying your awareness and observation. Okay? So without further ado, let me give you a little bit of a understanding of who I am, just so that you know who you're getting this content from and all this information. Okay, so first and foremost, my name is Jeremiah Schwartz. I am a professional occultist. I am fully initiated in Kabbalah, being the top, the bottom, and the back side of the tree. I'm studied when it comes to the 22 archetypal paths on the tree. And I'm also studied when it comes to planetary energies in regards to astrology. Okay? So with that said, what is the topic of our video? The topic is going to be in regards to pantheons. Okay, we're going to be talking about what exactly are different pantheons within the occult field. And we're not going to be going into depth about the different pantheons. That's not the goal of this video. What we're going to specifically be focusing on is, should you be switching pantheons? Should you be changing pantheons? Okay, I'm going to even explain a little bit of what a pantheon really represents. Okay, if you don't even know what pantheon means. For those of you that have been in the occult field, you should definitely know what that word pantheon represents, though. So we're gonna get some clarity on choosing a pantheon for your occult initiatory evolutionary journey. Okay, so if you want to know a little bit more about pantheons, and specifically, should you be switching pantheons, and how you should choose pantheons or a certain pantheon, then this is your video, so stay tuned. Okay, so let's start here. So I'm going to start by creating a context that is rooted in reality. Why do I know this? Because I experience it. Okay, this is something I see on a day-to-day basis as an occult teacher myself, you know, that deals with and interacts with many people on a day-to-day basis. This is something that I see in the field. This is something that I actually experience. Okay. So, in regards to pantheons, there are a lot of people that get into their occult practices, okay? And immediately what they do is they find a certain type of practice that is based around a specific pantheon that they gravitate towards naturally. They just gravitate towards it. So what exactly is a pantheon for those of you that don't know what that means? It's basically a culture that has created their own names, their own mythology even, that is connected to an evolutionary occult system or energetic current of spiritual initiation. That's what a pantheon is. So, for example, you have the Egyptian pantheon that is dealing with Horus, Thoth, Anubis, Set, entities in that nature. Then we look over here and we have the Norse pantheon, which deals with Ragnarok, Thor, Loki, Freya. Okay? Then you have the Hindu pantheon, which deals with Kali, Shiva, okay? Kalki. And this is what a pantheon is. Okay? Then we have the Kabbalistic pantheon, which deals with Lucifer, Satan, Moloch, Archangel Michael, Archangel Gabriel, Archangel Raphael. This is another pantheon. Okay? So, in regards to what a pantheon is, it is a specific cultural format for occult and spiritual self-evolution. So the purpose of a pantheon is to give a structure to the initiate who is entering into the pantheon to then be able to find the pathway to achieve their highest potential within the pantheon. So a good pantheon is going to be based around real occult evolutionary principles that then can allow the initiate entering into that pantheon to achieve the source that is within themselves. That's the purpose of a pantheon. So let me give you an example of a pantheon that is not a healthy pantheon that will lead to your ultimate suffering and sacrifice of energy. Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism. This is an entire pantheon as well. That is really based around three things: Yahweh, Jehovah, and the Holy Spirit, which is overarching Yaldabaoth, the chaos entity. This is a pantheon that is programmed to get you into chaos. So now what we have is we have an idea of all these different pantheons. Okay? Some are going to lead you to the source within and are based in more rooted evolutionary reality. And some are like Judaism, Catholicism, Christianity, where they're based in a complete false structure of how reality actually works and is programmed to get you to sacrifice your energy. Okay? So that's very important to understand. Now, when it comes to pantheons like Hinduism, when it comes to pantheons like Norse, when it comes to pantheons like Greek, Roman, Egyptian, you're going to notice that these pantheons that are more ancient have more rooted foundation to them. You're going to notice that they're actually very similar. Okay? You're going to notice that there are specific gods, entities, and spirits, currents of energy that are similar from one pantheon to another. So, for example, in regards to the Kabbalistic pantheon, if we enter into the Qliphoth, we have a very prominent demonic spirit known as Lilith. Okay? When you come over to the Hindu tradition, they have an entity called Kali. There is a lot of similarity between Lilith and Kali. Okay? When we look at the Kabbalistic pantheon and we see a spirit known as Lucifer, there is a lot of similarity between Lucifer and the Egyptian pantheon of Horus, and some would even say Enki. Okay? So, what I'm trying to say is that these pantheons, yes, they're different. They are different in mythology. They're different in the way that they're perceived. And they are different. They're used by different groups of people. But the reality is that with these more ancient pantheons that actually have their roots in something that is solid and foundational, basically what I'm saying is something that actually works, not Judaism. That is, that Judaism is a very recent pantheon compared to these other ones. Judaism is not ancient whatsoever. It's a program to harvest energy, okay? But when it comes to these ancient pantheons that I've mentioned, we are seeing underlying currents of energy that are similar in nature. As I mentioned with the few entities, spirits that I just said that have similar correlations, okay? I'm not necessarily saying that Kali and Lilith are the exact same. No, they're not. And the reason why they're not is because the tradition of Hinduism that looks at Kali, the energy that goes into Kali is also part of the mythology that's behind what Kali represents. So therefore, that is going to separate Kali from Lilith, because from the Kabbalistic perspective and the lore of Kabbalah, Lilith has a different mythology, and that goes into Lilith. So that this is going to separate these two energies and make them their own. They are different, okay? But although they're different, there's a deeper rooted underlying energy about them that is very similar. They are both feminine energies that are destructive and ruthless in nature, but carry a lot of sexual freedom and a lot of sexual liberation if you know how to embrace them properly. Okay? So that is that deeper similarity that Kali and Lilith have, even though they are different spirits. So we see this happen throughout all different types of pantheons, real pantheons, pantheons that can actually get you to your highest potential. We see this common occurrence that there are these similar underlying energetic currents that are behind these different spirits and these different entities. So as someone who has sense and intellect, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, you want to get to the roots of what those energies are. So when it comes to the question of what is the right pantheon, what is the best pantheon to choose when I start to get into magic or when I start to get into the occult, what should I get into? The answer is not a solid answer for just anybody. Okay, it's going to be unique to you. And it's going to be unique to what you resonate with most, according to your bloodline, according to your genetic code, the DNA that runs through your body. There is a unique pantheon that you are predestined to gravitate towards more so. Okay? For me, it's Kabbalah. And the reason why it's Kabbalah for me is because the people that have been controlling the entire earth and have programmed the multiverse up until now, obviously I say that because it's burning down right now, but these people that have been in control, owning all the banks, calling the shots literally on a mass collective scale, they've been using Kabbalah. So if they're able to control the world using Kabbalah, then obviously that's what I'm into. That's what I want to know. I want to know about the tree and all of its facets, the darkest and the light. I want to know about all of it. Okay? Now, you'll notice that within these different pantheons, you see similarities to this tree. For example, you have the Norse, and they have Yggdrasil, which is their tree. Okay? I'm not too familiar with Hindu tradition, but I can imagine there's probably some sort of tree associated with that as well. And any of the most powerful pantheons are going to have some form of tree, some form of structured initiation that you can begin to integrate within yourself so that you can actually start making progress in the occult field. So the reason why I choose Kabbalah, once again, is because for me, it's the closest system that is based to actual science and physics, giving you the roadmap to reaching the source within. That's why I choose Kabbalah. Okay, I'm not saying that everyone's going to gravitate towards that, though. This is what I'm more gravitationally pulled towards, and that's the reason. So the first thing that you want to do as the person listening to this video is you want to first figure out within yourself, what are you more drawn towards? Are you drawn towards the lore of Norse mythology? Are you drawn towards the lore of Hindu mythology? Are you drawn towards the lore of whatever other pantheon or system it is? What are you more drawn towards? Okay? That's the first distinction that you want to make. Once you can make that distinction, you want to understand that there's a really solid reason why you're drawn towards that. You want to know that because there's a reason why you're gravitationally pulled towards that specific system, culturally based mythology. So that is the pantheon that you're going to get the most value from. Okay? Now, here is the deal. When it comes to evolutionary progress and initiation within the occult field, it is going to be based in a universal system that is directly connected to what is known as the Tree of Life. Okay, so this Tree of Life is symbolized by the DNA strand. And the reason why is because it literally runs in your blood. So this is the process of occult and spiritual initiation and evolution to reach your highest potential of power. Okay? So you're going to want to understand that the purpose of self-development within the occult field is to begin to start to get the sliver of an awareness that there actually is this system to it. It's not chaos. It's not you're just jumping off the cliff as the fool and then you're free falling for the rest of your life. There actually is a structured, tangible system to what you need to experience and what you need to go through to achieve your state of ultimate power. Okay? So when you choose a pantheon, whatever pantheon that is, you want to understand that there is this actual system. Now, if you see within the pantheon you choose that you're not recognizing or you're not able to pick up on a structure to what you're learning, after having been involved with this pantheon for at least a year, if you can't get the slightest understanding that there's some sort of roadmap to it or some sort of direction that you can start to pinpoint to it, then maybe that's not the right pantheon to be working on. Because what's the point of knowing about mythological spirits if you don't actually understand what it's doing to you on an energetic level and where it's supposed to lead you? Once again, Kabbalah takes you through the roadmap of spiritual evolution, and the 22 tarot are the archetypal experiences that you have to embrace to get there. This is like one of the most in-depth forms of occult self-development and initiation. Once again, the reason why the people that have been controlling the entire mass collective on Earth use Kabbalah to do that. It's that powerful of a system. So I would recommend this if you are in a place where you're like, I don't really know what I'm gravitationally pulled to. I'm not 100% sure, but if I'm going to choose something, I'll just, I'll choose something like that. That sounds like potent. So then this is where I come in and I say, well, then I would recommend start diving into Kabbalah, the Sephiroth and the Qliphoth, the entire tree. Don't jump into just doing rituals coming from occult orders, but start studying the tree. Start reading books that tell you about it, because this will give you a solid understanding that there is an actual initiatory step-by-step journey that will naturally manifest once you start intending this evolutionary shift or transformation for yourself. But taking it back, if you're involved with a pantheon that doesn't give you that solid understanding, and you feel like you're in some sort of abyss or chaos that has no end to it and has no direction to get out of it, then maybe that pantheon is not a good pantheon. Maybe there's no direction for it, and there's nothing it's going to actually get you to, because you don't see any pathways. You don't see anything that it could lead to, because maybe the pantheon's not clear. Okay? So that's what I want to say in regards to when you choose a pantheon. The message is that it's very important to recognize that the purpose of the pantheon is to give you a structure to your evolutionary journey, whatever pantheon you choose. Now, what I'm saying is that if you choose a pantheon that doesn't provide the structure that gives you an awareness of like, I'm moving in this direction and I'm going to achieve this, then maybe that is not a good pantheon. So consider that. Okay? Now, the next thing I want to say for people that are getting into a pantheon and start performing the magic from that specific pantheon, once again, your first primary goal should be to start finding the evolutionary purpose of the pantheon. What is the purpose of the pantheon? Where is the highest level initiate of this pantheon going? Where did they go? What did they achieve? Do I want to follow Jesus and get crucified on the cross? No, that doesn't sound fun. Do I want to get poisoned under a tree like Buddha? No, that doesn't sound fun. Do I want to be like Lucifer and rule the underworld and control demonic forces to live a life that I completely want to live and be called the light bearer because I'm doing it in a evolutionary way? That's considerable. That sounds pretty cool. It sounds like there's actually some power in that. And not only, but I can look in the reality around me, and you look at Hollywood and at all of them are using Luciferianism. They're all making deals with Lucifer. They're all making tons of money. So maybe there's some truth in that. I don't know. Let's find out. So these are questions that you want to ask yourself. So once again, when it comes to finding that pantheon, the first primary motive should be to figure out where the evolutionary journey takes you and try your hardest to lock onto that. Okay? Now, this is a huge mistake that I see that's being made by a lot of people, where they will choose a pantheon and they won't even be engaged with this pantheon for long enough to realize that there's an evolutionary structure to that culture's mythology, which is based on ancient principles and cosmic laws. So the average person doesn't have enough patience and even intent to be able to get to the point where they realize within their pantheon that, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do with this system. Oh, it's about my evolution. Oh, interesting. In order to achieve the source within, or in order to achieve my highest potential, I have to follow these steps, or I have to make these changes. See, most people don't even get to that point because they're trained, their mind is trained to be too impulsive, too quick. So they want results right now. And then they want to jump to something else. Okay, this pantheon doesn't work. Let me jump to another one. Oh, let me try this pantheon. Let me try this pantheon. Let me try this pantheon. And then they ask themselves the question, why am I not getting results? Why is this not working? What's going on? Is this pantheon not good? Is this pantheon better? Like this one not good? No, it's just that you haven't spent long enough time being involved in the pantheon. Even if the pantheon's bad, you want to stay in it long enough to realize, why is it bad? So you can really get that deep learning from the parts of that pantheon that you found that were ineffective, that were not valuable. Okay? So there's people that are getting involved with good pantheons. So I would say Norse is a good one. Kabbalah is the best. I would personally say Kabbalah is the best, and I'm not saying that just because I'm gravitationally pulled towards Kabbalah, but I mean, once again, look at reality. Who's running the world right now? People that control Kabbalistic technology. So I'm into that. I want to rule the world. Okay? So Kabbalah is my #1 recommended source if you're wanting to understand an evolutionary process to achieving the source within yourself. That's good. Hinduism is a good pantheon. You can learn a lot from Hinduism. And Hinduism and the Norse pantheon and Kabbalah, they're very similar in their rooted energetic currents. They're very similar. So that means if you study Hindu traditions down to the root, and if you study Norse traditions down to the root, and you study Kabbalistic traditions down to the root, you're going to see a lot of ancient similarities and a lot of very similar underlying currents of energy that are going through these specific 3 different pantheons. Okay? So, there's a lot of people that I'm seeing that will get involved with one of these 3 pantheons. And they will tell me, hey, I've been doing this. I've been working with, let's say hypothetically, I've been working with Hindu tradition. You know, I've been working with these entities. Now I'm just going to completely switch and start doing Kabbalistic initiation. Okay, I'm going to stop doing Hindu initiation and I'm going to start doing Kabbalistic initiation. Well, that's flawed. That's not real. That's untrue. Because these specific 3 pantheons are so similar in nature that they're operating in the same level of initiation. So that means that the degree that you've initiated over in the Hindu tradition, if you started working with Kabbalistic spirits and entities, you'll start to notice that you're just continuing your initiatory journey from the Hindu tradition, and it's just transferring over to your Kabbalistic understanding. It's the same current of evolution that the human goes through that runs in the DNA. So it's not that when you're working with Hindu entities and spirits and deities, and then you say, I'm just gonna for some reason you may be like, I'm not getting what I want out of it, or maybe it's not for me. I'm just going to jump over to Kabbalistic. As I was saying, my camera just cut out for a second. As I was saying, I'm just going to jump over to Kabbalistic initiatory experiences and spirits and working with Kabbalistic entities. You're not starting from ground zero again. Depending on where you got with the Hindu tradition in this scenario that I'm creating, that is you are making evolutionary progress within your genetic code. And that will carry over to your Kabbalistic understanding if you make that transition. It's not like the Hindu tradition is completely separate from the Kabbalistic tree of life. And the Norse traditions and the Norse pantheon with the tree of Yggdrasil is not completely different than the Kabbalistic tree of life. They are all self-similar. These are three really solid traditions. Very self-similar. And the Egyptian traditions as well. That's actually, Kabbalah came from Egypt. So when you start to understand, deeper Egyptian mythology, that's directly connected to Kabbalah, because Kabbalah, spelt with a K, used to be Kabbalah spelt with a Q, and that's what the ancient Egyptians were using. So when people get this idea that they're like, I'm going to bounce from this tradition, and then I'm going to jump into this tradition, and I'm going to get a whole nother experience. It's going to be completely different. It's like a whole nother gateway of life. That's not true most of the time. Now, obviously, if you're involved with Judaism, Christianity, or Buddhism, and certain practices that are based around you serving a god, Judaic in nature. Now that is a big change. That would be a huge shift from one pantheon to another, if it has that context to it. But when it comes to, once again, the more ancient and the more rooted pantheons that have existed for many, 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 many millennia, because they're based on the same energetic current of evolution, achieving the source within yourself, like Norse, Hindu, and Kabbalistic understandings, traditions, pantheons. If you're involved with these types of pantheons that actually are grounded in real truth, evolutionary truth, then they're not that different. The only thing different about it is the mythology that's behind it. That's the main difference. It's that signature of a different culture and a different mythology. So what I want to make clear is that it's important to experience different pantheons. It's important to recognize that you can have freedom in any of your occult practices. You can literally be working with the Kabbalistic tree, and then you can talk to Thor. You can invoke Thor, or you can invoke Shiva, or invoke Kali. You can do whatever you want. Whatever. But to have the idea, and I want to say this, and I encourage that. I really encourage that. Experience these different pantheons and start to recognize these similar energetic underlying currents that run behind these different spirits. But what I want to make clear is that when you're going from a pantheon like Hindu or Kabbalistic, and then you're switching into a Norse pantheon, you're not jumping into something completely different. You're in the same evolutionary process that you were previously in when you were studying Kabbalah or when you were working with Kabbalah entities. You're in the same process, the same exact system. And this is something that you start to recognize as a higher level occultist who's actually been through the entire process of occult initiation. Why do I know this? How do I know this? That should be a question you have. How do I know what I'm saying is true right now? Because I've experienced it. As I've been traveling through the Kabbalah, this is literally why I say the Kabbalah is probably the best pantheon you could dive into. And this is why the people that control the world are using it. It is that potent. The reason why I know what I'm saying is because as I was traveling through Kabbalah, specifically the clip-off, the roots of the tree, the deeper aspects of creation and reality, as I was working through that, guess what happened? Other pantheons that were valuable started coming to me. What does that mean? I would meet certain people throughout my clipothic journey when I was traveling through certain clipothic spheres and tunnels of Set. And I would meet certain people that were from, specifically, this is what I saw most commonly, the Hindu traditions and the Norse traditions. These were certain people that I would see, and they would very profoundly come into my life, and they would share their information, for example, on Hindu tradition, that actually ended up energetically connecting directly with what I was experiencing through my initiations. And as this happened over and over and over again, I started to pick up on the fact that some of these deities and these spirits coming from this Hindu tradition that this person I randomly met is telling me about actually seems very similar to the entities that I'm currently initiating and invoking myself over here working through the Kabbalistic initiatory system. Wow, maybe there's some sort of deep underlying energetic resonance between these different pantheons of occult initiation or occult spiritual evolution. So as I was working through the clip-off, Thor came to me many times. How does Thor come to me? Okay, well, simply, when you're walking outside, and then, or not outside, when you're, or yeah, even outside, you could say outside, or at the time I was working in Equinox, and all the windows in Equinox were open, so you could, like everything you could see outside. And when you're walking around like that and you see lightning strike the ground very profoundly, and then right shortly after that happens, somebody comes over and starts talking to you about Thor randomly. Like I didn't bring the conversation up, it just came. Or if I go on my YouTube and I'm scrolling through just to see my like whatever live feed or the new videos that have been released, and then somebody just makes a video about Thor after I had seen lightning just strike outside right in front of my face, there's a little bit of a correspondence there. And it's very interesting to see that Thor is definitely making himself known while I'm in this Kabbalistic initiatory journey, which doesn't really include Thor. But at the same time, if the Norse pantheon is based around the same current of evolution as Kabbalistic pantheon, then it would completely make sense that Thor would be making himself known. Because maybe Thor is also connected to a Kabbalistic spirit that I'm currently initiating or working with. Maybe it's the same spirit as something else, just with its own signature because of the pantheon. Get what I'm saying? So that's something that I want to make very clear, and this is true. So there's a lot of people that have this idea that they need to jump to different pantheons and that they're going to get some complete different revelation or experience, having just dropped one pantheon and completely jumping into another. And most of the times that's not true at all. That just leaves you in a bigger state of chaos, right? It's like if you can't be patient with a pantheon and allow it to show you the wisdom, understanding, and knowledge that's embedded within it, then you're never going to make progress if you're just jumping around, right? I call it the microwave mindset. You want everything quick. So if you don't get the result you're looking for on this one, then you just quit and then you go to another one, right? It's like TikTok. You get on a video and it's like 15 seconds long and then you scroll on the next one. And you constantly do this. And now your mind is expecting things in that format. Okay? So patience is key in these regards. And you will never get anywhere in regards to your personal power in reaching your highest potential if you don't have patience. And especially if you're not involved with something or in something that directly draws in your interest naturally. Because there's a reason why you gravitationally pull towards certain systems and pantheons. And the best ones are all interconnected, just like the three I mentioned: Norse, Hindu, and Kabbalistic. Ancient Egyptian Kabbalistic. And the Greek pantheon. You know? You'll know that the best ones are all interconnected. So, yeah, so that's what I want to make clear from this, is that when you drop one and you go to another, you're not changing, like nothing's changing other than just that little signature of the culture. Okay, so in regards to your power and your psychic abilities, you're not going to really get much of a difference because you were already working through one pantheon. And the goal is to stay with one pantheon until you achieve the source within. So to think that you're going to be working in a pantheon and then jump to another one and expect to gain huge amounts of power in different types of power, that's not really true at all. Because these different pantheons, most of the time, are already similar in nature. The only difference, once again, is that little signature of a difference that's coming from the mythology and the culture of that pantheon. But the purpose behind the mythology and the culture was to achieve the highest potential within. And that's what's important. So once again, if you're jumping from Judaism or anything like Judaism, and then you're getting into Kabbalistic pantheons, things in that nature that involve initiation and evolution, that's a big jump. But these are such different pantheons that you should already know that that's a big jump. Whenever you're involved with a pantheon that has to do with self-development and initiation, that's usually a good sign. And you should probably stick with that and be patient. But if you're involved with a pantheon that tells you to give your soul away, that tells you to worship and give all your energy to some external spirits or entity or energy, that's usually a really red flag. Like really red. Okay? So there's a difference. In Hindu tradition, in Norse tradition, Egyptian tradition, these were initiatory traditions. Your goal was to achieve your highest potential. So if you're involved in any of these traditions that are like that or self-similar, then there's no point in bouncing around all the time thinking you're making huge changes. You're not. You're just switching up the culture a little bit. So find your culture, find what you're drawn towards. Now definitely don't refrain yourself. If you feel like working with a different pantheon or a different entity or spirit from a different pantheon, follow your intuition first and foremost. Always do that. But don't have the mindset that if you jump into a whole different pantheon, if it's one of these self-similar ones, that everything's going to change for you, because it's not. It is not. You need to recognize the initiatory system. That's what you need. So that's where I'm going to leave this. I think that offered value. So if you enjoyed the video, hit the thumbs up. Also hit the notification bell because I post videos as often as I can. And you definitely don't want to miss out, especially with the content that is coming. And definitely also hit that subscribe button because I appreciate all my subscribers shooting through the roof. That's always a great thing. And drop down in the description of this video. And at that top of the description, you're going to see a link that says My Patreon. So if you want to gain access to exclusive content, then go ahead and join my Patreon. Okay? So at Tier 2, what you're going to gain access to is a bunch of exclusive content. But primarily what you're going to gain access to is Kabbalistic information in regards to the Sephiroth and the Qliphoth. So what I do is I cover all of the spheres on my Patreon in depth, giving you their symbolism, the spirits connected to them, and my own personal experience having initiated through those spheres myself. This is very valuable information if you want to start understanding the roadmap of occult initiation and evolution. Okay? So that is what I have on my Patreon, and you will gain access to that content at tier 2 or up. Okay, so at tier 2, what that's going to cost is $9.95 a month, and that is a reoccurring payment. If you do the math, that will literally come out to less than $1 a day. So there is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be able to afford that, especially with the value that I have on my Patreon. And that is a fact from me to you. Okay? Now, as you go from tier 2 to tier 3, now you're gaining access to my magic training course, my magic training school course. And what I have on there is actual occult practices that you can start applying right now. And I give you all the tools that you need. Okay, I tell you all the tools that you need to have, how you need to set them up, how you can charge your tools. This is all stuff I demonstrate on video so that you know. And then I teach you what to do with your tools to increase your power to control the world around you, which is low magic. So at tier 3, you gain access to that level of content. Okay? So that is going to cost $25 a month for that content. Okay? Now for tier 4, this is going to be the top tier so far. Tier 4 is going to be called Vampire Service. So this is a service that I perform for you that literally changes your entire energetic structure permanently. So what this does is this shifts you from a more so Universe A dominant energy field, which is objective and pushes outwards, into a more so Universe B energetic structure or energetic field, which is more receptive and pulls in energy. That's why it's called the Vampire Service. Now, when that happens, when you become more receptive, this increases your ability to go outside of the 5 senses. So this will increase your astral viewing. This will increase any of your occult practices. This will make it easier for you to drop into a meditative state, to be able to silence your mind. And so far from the people I've done it for, I've heard amazing results from it so far. And primarily what it's meant to do and what it does is it, instead of giving your energy to chaos and feeding chaos around you by pushing energy into it, now you're pulling energy from chaos, increasing your power by feeding, sucking energy out of chaos, which causes you to be more receptive and receive more knowledge, wisdom, understanding, which equates to power. Okay? So that's going to be for tier 4, and that is the highest tier, and that's going to cost $50 a month. Now, if you want to know a little bit more about that service, there is an entire video that I have that explains that service, so you can look at that as well. Okay? So with that being said, I would like to give a special shout out to all the top tier members, top tier specifically. I've got their names that are mentioned in the description below this video, right below that link, the first Patreon link. So once again, huge shout out to you, ladies and gentlemen, for specifically taking your practices to that next level. Okay, that is awesome. Now, the second shout out that I would like to give is going to be to all of my Patreon members in general. I appreciate all of you for taking your knowledge and your practices to that next level. That is awesome. And I appreciate it. It really is great. And then a third shout out to all of my YouTube subscribers that are taking in this content. That is awesome. Okay, I appreciate all of you as well. All right, so the next thing that I'd like to say is if you would like to book your own personalized tarot card reading with me, go in the description and look at the second link below. This is below the Patreon link where it says Square Appointments. What you're going to do is you're going to click that link, and there you can see that you can book a tarot card reading with me. Now, what I do for this tarot card reading is I can literally locate where you are in your evolutionary journey currently because of my knowledge and experience with the Kabbalistic tree. So I can pinpoint where you're located and where you're going to be headed within your near future and long-term future. And I also tell you what's going on in your present moment, what you're experiencing and what you're feeling. Now, obviously, this is very valuable information, especially if you take it to the next level and start to study the Kabbalistic tree, because you'll be able to find, oh my gosh, I'm in this sphere and I'm about to start working through this pathway. And then you can have a very strong awareness of where you're headed, and that's huge. Okay, that's what the occult is all about in regards to initiation. So if you would like to book that reading with me, your own individualized reading, check out the second link below. That's where you're able to do that. Okay? Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day or night wherever you are, and I will see you on the next video. Peace.